Bank manager slaps undercover CEO at 3 a.m. never told that she's the owner. The sound of the slap echoed in the silent bank, a shocking crescendo shattering the stillness of the moonlit early morning. The bank stood deserted, cloaked in shadows, except for the flickering fluorescent lights that painted the walls in a sickly hue. It was a time where secrets swirled like the dust in the air, and no one was supposed to be there. But there they were, two women, one with a fierce glare and the other frozen in disbelief, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Mary, the bank manager, trembled with adrenaline. Her hands were clenched at her sides, and her heart hammered against her rib cage like a million drums. There was something off about the woman standing before her. Dressed impeccably in a tailored navy suit, she looked out of place in a bank after hours. Who walked into a bank alone at 3 a.m.? And why was she not afraid? The woman's perfume hung heavy in the air, something expensive and intoxicating, like danger wrapped in allure. Who was she? Mary just knew she couldn't let that woman complete whatever strange business she had planned. But as Mary's hand connected with skin, she felt a surge of fear tightening her throat. The slap was more than just an act of defiance. It was a cry for control in a moment spiraling out of her grasp. The other woman staggered back, shock flashing in her eyes, and suddenly everything felt like a movie gone wrong. "I shouldn't have done that," Mary muttered, the lump in her throat growing. Was she in trouble? Did she even know who that woman was? In that moment's pause, the world outside the bank was blind to the chaos unfolding within. It was just another quiet night in the city, cars whizzing by, distant sirens wailing, and the occasional homeless person shuffling down the sidewalk, unaware of the drama brewing behind those glass doors. But was it really just a simple case of mistaken identity? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Mary's mind raced now, the reality of her actions crashing over her like a tidal wave. What if that woman had a gun? What if the slap unleashed something dark and dangerous? As she pondered these questions, the stranger straightened up, her eyes narrowing with an intensity that sent chills down Mary's spine. "You really don't know, do you?" The words dripped with a blend of amusement and something unnameable, the promise of chaos. "Know what?" Mary barely whispered, dread pooling in her stomach. Could this be the end for her? As the woman leaned in closer, a glint of mischief in her eyes, Mary felt the world tilt. Everything about this felt wrong, too many loose ends, too many unanswered questions. Just as she took a step back, the bank's security alarm blared to life, a deafening roar that shattered the tension. The stranger didn't flinch, but Mary's heart dropped. Everyone outside would know something was wrong. And who exactly was this woman that she had just slapped? As sirens wailed in the distance, one question lingered in the air: what was going to happen next? The blaring of the security alarm enveloped them like a thick fog, drowning out the sounds of the city outside. Each wail sent spikes of adrenaline racing through Mary, her instincts blaring at her to flee. But there was nowhere to run, not now. Not with the feral intensity in the stranger's gaze anchoring her in place. "Do you even understand the gravity of what you just did?" The woman's voice was a low, mocking whisper now, slicing through the chaos with precision. "You've just slapped the owner of this bank." Mary felt the blood drain from her face. Owner? How could that even be possible? It didn't make sense. She had been so confident, so ready to defend her territory against a perceived threat. Yet here she stood, a peon in a game she didn't know she was playing. Fear curled in her stomach, knotting tighter with each second. The woman stepped closer, invading Mary's space, her eyes glimmering with something sinister, yet captivating. "I've come to finalize a deal that could change everything." And thank you for your unusual introduction. Her smile was sharp, filled with a confidence that made Mary want to shrink away. What do you want from me? Mary managed to stammer, her mind racing through options and outcomes, which all seemed to lead to some terrible end. Information. The woman leaned against the counter, her voice low and smooth, like silk over ice. I can make a lot of things happen in this town. I can make sure you keep your job, your little life, or I can make it vanish like the sun at dusk. Outside, the sounds of clattering boots approached, the distinct rhythm of security personnel responding to the alarm. With every second that ticked by, the urgency of their situation deepened, wrapping around Mary like a tightening noose. She had to think fast, but her mind was clouded with panic. "Who are you?" she whispered, grasping for some sense of understanding. The facade of composure was slipping away, and temptation lurked in the depths of the temptation. "What's your name?" "A name is just a label," the woman replied, her voice a soft hiss, but Mary could hear the mocking edge. "You can call me Alondra." Alondra, Mary echoed, trying to wrap her mind around the implications. Alondra didn't just walk into a bank at 3 a.m. for no reason. This was someone who held power, someone with connections that could either build or destroy. With heavy breaths, Mary weighed her options. Was she willing to play this dangerous game? To risk everything she cared about? Just as she opened her mouth to respond, the front door crashed open, sending a wave of cold air and urgent shouts into the bank. "Freeze! Nobody move!" The commanding voice of the head of security cut through the tension like a hot knife. Mary's heart raced as she glanced between Alondra and the approaching guards. If she revealed everything, would she be condemning herself? Or could this be her only chance to escape whatever trap Alondra had woven? "Remember, Mary," Alondra said, a predatory smile curling her lips. "The choice is yours, but time is running out." As the guards rushed closer, Mary felt the weight of the choice sink down on her, the moment of reckoning hanging in the air like a thunderstorm ready to break loose. What was she going to decide? Would she take the plunge into Alondra's dark world, or could she find a way to secure her freedom? The sirens faded, but the uncertainty roared louder than ever. So much was at stake, and the finality of her decision lingered painfully. The guards stormed in, their boots thundering against the marble floor, echoing like gunfire in Mary's ears. Each shout from the head of security was relentless, demanding obedience, but her focus was drawn to Alondra. The woman's confidence didn't waver. She bore a chill smile, as if reveling in the chaos around them. "Get on the ground. Now." The command flew through the air like a whip crack, commanding attention. Mary's heart pounded against her ribs, tension coiling tighter. She noticed the guards scanning the room, weapons drawn, eyes darting between her and Alondra. Blood rushed in her ears, drowning out rational thought. "Go ahead, play the hero," Alondra whispered, her voice barely a flicker above the chaos. "But know that people like us always find a way to survive. You want your life back? Then help me." Mary's mind raced. Alondra had put her in the crosshairs, straddling the line between a dangerous ally and a threatening adversary. Was it worth the risk to help? Their eyes locked, and something in Alondra's gaze sparked a flicker of understanding. She wasn't just after power. There was an intensity that hinted at plans much bigger than this bank. "Drop your weapon. Now." Another guard barked, his voice filled with urgency as he approached. Time slowed. Mary could either play along or expose Alondra, but it felt like choosing between fire and ice, a gamble that would shatter her already fragile existence. She took a deep breath. I'm an employee," she blurted, her voice trembling slightly. She shut up. A guard shouted at her, eyes narrowing. The tension in the room fluctuated wildly, and she felt herself inching toward a precipice. "Smart move, Mary." Alondra's voice cut through Mary's thoughts, calm and composed, without a trace of fear. "But you need to keep your head up. You still have a choice. Get her against the wall." A guard yelled, rushing closer, his eyes darting between Mary and Alondra, confusion swirling around him like a storm. As they approached, Alondra turned her attention to the guard, her smile never wavering. "You must think this is a game, aren't you?" she taunted. "But think about who really holds the cards here." That was it. The moment of clarity Mary had been seeking. Alondra wasn't just another player. She was the dealer in this high-stakes gamble. And now the game had taken a turn for the sinister. "Listen to me," Mary said, urgently abandoning her allegiance to uncertainty for riskier truth. "If there's more you need, I can help you." It felt like stepping off a cliff. Was it too late to turn back? The room tensed, the air thick with danger. Alondra arched an eyebrow, intrigued, a spark of interest flickering in her eyes. Interesting proposal. Just then, another blaring alarm pierced the air, an alert signaling something catastrophic outside the bank, something that no one could have anticipated. A deep rumble echoed, shaking the walls of the building as the ground trembled beneath their feet. "What the hell is happening?" one guard shouted, panic creeping into his voice. "It's your choice, Mary." Alondra's voice cut sharply, demanding attention. "Are you ready to embark on this journey with me? Or will you let them take you down?" Mary felt the walls closing in, the choice looming like a dark chasm. The guard shouted and exchanged terrified glances even as the rumblings grew louder. Out of the darkness, a storm was brewing, both inside the bank and beyond its walls. What lay ahead was uncertain. Would she dive into Alondra's world to seize her chance? Or would she succumb to the guards, losing everything in the process? Whatever decision she made next could seal her fate, but the rumble escalated further, a new intensity creeping into the air. And in that moment, amidst the chaos and looming danger, a chilling thought pierced her mind. What began as a simple collision at the bank was only an omen of something far worse yet to come. The tremors continued to shake the room, rattling shelves and sending papers fluttering like desperate birds. Mary's heart raced as she locked eyes with Alondra, whose cool demeanor almost seemed to mock the panic unfolding around them. "Decide, Mary," Alondra urged, her voice cutting through the cacophony. She stepped closer to the guards, almost daring them to react. "You want to reclaim your life. You have to act fast." Mary felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her. Her breath was shallow, and the stakes had risen to a terrifying height. The guards were losing control, firing nervous glances at one another. They were no longer just enforcers. They were scared, human beings caught in something they didn't fully understand. Her decision could either save them or plunge them deeper into chaos. "Get on the floor," one of the guards bellowed again, clearly overwhelmed. His voice trembled now, a signal that they were losing grip on the situation. In a split second, Mary saw the madness unfold as one guard, in a fit of anxiety, waved his weapon wildly. "We can't let this get out of control." That was the moment Mary knew she had to intervene. "Stop," she yelled, louder than she intended. "It's okay, just take a breath." She turned to Alondra, her mind racing, desperate to weave a path through the thorns of this treachery. "Tell me what you need," she whispered, frantically wrestling with her conviction. Alondra's smile faded, replaced by determination. "First, I need a distraction. If you can get the guards to focus on you, I can slip away and initiate the plan." Mary swallowed hard. Such a move could leave her exposed. But what choice did she have? Either she stood alongside Alondra or faced the guards alone, likely ending up on the ground in handcuffs or worse. Without giving it another thought, she shouted, "You're making a mistake. Let us go. I can help you sort this out." Instantly, the guards turned, fixated on her. Panic morphed into hostility. Tension spiraled like a tornado in the small room. "What are you doing?" Alondra hissed, her voice barely masking her annoyance. "They don't want your help. I have a plan." Mary spat back, the urgency of the moment sharpening her resolve. Just trust me." The guard closest to her, a thin man with sweat beading on his forehead, stepped forward. "What plan? Speak now." There was no turning back. Mary tossed her hands up in defeat. "The alarms. They're only getting louder. This whole building could be in serious danger." The words hung heavy in the air. For a moment, time slowed as the guards exchanged uncertain glances. Alondra, taking advantage of the crack in their armor, leaned closer to Mary. "You've started something you can't finish. Be ready. When I move, you follow." Mary's heart thudded painfully in her chest. She was teetering on the edge, but there was no chance to regain her balance now. Alondra pivoted, her presence commanding as she stepped toward the guards, the predator positioning itself before its prey. "Listen to her. It's all connected." Alondra's voice echoed, and the guards hesitated. "You think this is just a bank robbery? Oh no. This is bigger than all of us." Mary thought she might actually be sick from the rush of adrenaline. The rumbling outside had transformed into a full-blown quake, shaking the building as if it were crumbling to pieces. "Enough." The head guard barked, directing his weapon toward Alondra. His fingers trembled. "Back off, or I'll shoot."
No.
The urgency sliced through Mary. She lunged forward. "Please don't. You don't know what you're dealing with." Then, with a deafening crash, part of the ceiling above them collapsed, debris showering down like rain. The guards ducked instinctively while Mary scrambled to grab Alondra.
"Now."
Alondra shouted as sparks flew from the cracking walls around them. Mary's veins pulsed with terror, but she reacted, her instincts taking charge. She grabbed Alondra's arm and pulled her toward the nearest exit, knowing the time for hesitance had passed, but at that moment, everything changed again. There was a sudden blinding flash outside. The ground trembled beneath them, and sirens wailed like a banshee. Mary's heartbeat quickened. Something was coming, something that would change their lives forever. And as she surged forward, the truth thundered in her mind. They weren't alone. What lay beyond the bank's walls threatened everything she thought she knew. Alondra was right. This was just the beginning. And now, with newfound dread and urgency, Mary realized the true storm was only beginning to brew. Where would it lead them, this uncharted path of chaos and danger? Only time would tell. Mary yanked Alondra through the chaos, her heart pounding as they escaped the crumbling room. The moment they burst outside, blinding light flooded their senses. Survival instinct kicked in, and they ducked behind a shattered wall. The once busy street was now a battlefield, littered with debris and panic-stricken civilians running for their lives. "What is happening?" Mary gasped, trying to catch a breath. The sirens, punctuated by intermittent explosions, created a chilling backdrop to their flight. She felt disoriented, like she'd stepped into a live horror movie. "Stay low," Alondra commanded, her eyes darting around as if scanning for a threat. "We have to move." Mary could barely comprehend her surroundings. Before her stood armored vehicles and figures in dark uniforms. The guards she'd faced moments ago were now just a small piece in a larger puzzle. What had Alondra dragged her into? A group of people nearby, possibly employees of a nearby hotel, huddled together under an awning. Panic plastered their faces. "What is going on?" one man shouted. Alondra's gaze turned sharp, calculating. "This isn't just an emergency, it's a diversion," she muttered, her voice steady despite the turmoil. "They're executing a plan, and we need to be part of it or get crushed in the fallout." Mary's stomach tightened at Alondra's words. Every instinct screamed for her to run, but she was tethered to this new truth. "You mean this is all connected to us? To the bank?"
"Exactly."
"Keep your eyes peeled. We're not just evading guards now. We're facing something larger, something they're hiding from us." Suddenly, a loud crack split the air. Mary's head whipped around just in time to see the towering building across the street begin to collapse, sending a cloud of dust and glass scattering across the ground like a deadly fog.
"Run,"
Alondra shouted, pulling Mary along as the pavement shook beneath their feet. They sprinted down the street, the soles of their shoes slapping against the concrete, desperate to put distance between themselves and the chaos. As they turned a corner, Mary's mind flooded with fragments of memories of meetings, of spreadsheets, of running the bank. There was clearly more at stake here than she had known. Was this the reason they'd locked her out of crucial decisions? The reason she was kept in the dark? But Alondra continued to press on, weaving through the crowd. "This way, we need to reach the rendezvous point. If we don't, Everything is lost. Mary barely had time to process the revelation before another explosion rocked the ground, sending a shockwave through her body. They both stumbled, her knees buckling momentarily. "Come on. We can't stop," Alondra urged, grabbing Mary by the arm with fierce determination. "If they want us, they'll come looking. We have to find the others." Somewhere in the chaos, Mary spotted a familiar face. It was one of the guards, his demeanor changing from threats to desperation as he shouted, "This isn't just a robbery. It's a setup." He glanced their way, fear written all over him. "Get away from here," he yelled, before diving into the nearest alley, whether in search of safety or other accomplices. Mary wasn't sure. Mary's heart raced with uncertainty. Could they trust him? Or was he merely a pawn in this massive game of power? The street seemed alive, each sound amplifying her dread, as if the world itself was closing in. And still, the tremors continued, an ominous reminder that something more powerful was at play. Alondra pulled her further into the confusion. "We need to figure out who's behind this. And we need to find the key to stop it." As they rounded another corner, a figure appeared out of the shadows, someone they both recognized, but could scarcely trust. Just who exactly stood before them? And did they hold the answers that could either save them or lead them deeper into the abyss? The moment hung heavy in the air, every heartbeat echoing with impending doom. Mary felt a knot in her throat. The storm was closing in, and they were right at the eye of it. What were they about to uncover? The figure stepped forward, their face illuminated by the flickering lights of chaos surrounding them. Mary squinted, instinctively recoiling. It was Richard, the bank's enigmatic CEO, the man who always seemed 2 steps ahead of everyone else. But his usual cool confidence was shattered, replaced by an urgency that jolted through the air. "Mary! Alondra! You shouldn't be here," he shouted, glancing nervously over his shoulder as the sirens wailed even louder, the sound building into a cacophony of panic. "What's going on?" Mary whispered, eyes darting toward the swirling dust clouds and the terrified faces. "Are you behind this?" He shook his head frantically. "No, not like this. It's bigger than I imagined. They're after something specific, and they think you two know what it is." Alondra stepped closer, eyes narrowed. "What do you mean? What do they want?" "Information," Richard replied, his voice low, urgent. "You were locked out for a reason. Someone wanted to keep you from discovering the truth about the merger, the money laundering. It's all connected." Mary's heart raced. The abstract numbers she had studied for years suddenly took on sinister implications. "But why lead us into this? Why now?" "Because," Richard continued, "I can't protect you from where the real danger lies. I thought I could contain it, but now." He motioned toward the growing chaos, the explosions reverberating through the ground. "They're targeting you. Can't you see? It's a trap." Suddenly, a nearby explosion sent a shockwave that knocked them all off their feet. Dust and debris rained down, scrambling their senses. Richard grabbed both Mary and Alondra, pulling them behind a nearby vehicle. The metallic scent of the engine mixed with the acrid smoke filled Mary's lungs, making it hard to breathe. As they crouched in the shadows, Mary met Alondra's gaze. Fear had twisted her friend's features into a mask of uncertainty. "Are we really the target?" she whispered, her voice shaky. "It's more complicated than that," Richard said, his brow furrowed in stress. "Someone wants to erase anyone who gets too close. You two can't let them separate you." Just then, a distant shout pierced through the chaos. A group of guards, the same ones they had seen earlier, were advancing into the street, looking wildly for anyone connected to the situation. The tension in the air felt suffocating. Richard turned to Mary, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "You need to trust me. We can't stay here much longer. If you have any of that information, we have to get it to the others." An explosion erupted not far from their hiding spot, sending shrapnel flying in every direction. Mary's ears rang, and panic surged through her as she instinctively turned, seeking refuge. Richard grabbed her shoulders, his grip firm. "Focus. We have to move now." The three of them stumbled into a nearby alley, the darkness swallowing them like a thick fog. Mary's mind reeled. What other secrets lay hidden beneath layers of corporate greed? What had she really been a part of all this time? Where do we go now? Alondra asked, her voice barely above a whisper as they pressed deeper into the shadows. There's a stash, Richard said. Blueprints, files, everything you need to understand what's happening. But it's risky. I can't guarantee we won't run into more guards. Are you ready? Mary felt the weight of his questions settle heavily on her chest. They could either confront this monstrous truth together, or they could be swallowed whole in the dark. She searched Alondra's face, seeing the same mix of fear and resolve reflected back. Before anyone could answer, gunshots rang out, echoing through the alley. The trio froze, heartbeats suddenly synced in their shared terror. We're out of time, Richard said, urgency cutting through the air. If we're going to find those files and stop this, we have to move now. As they braced to sprint toward the unknown, Mary felt a sudden tremor of doubt. The truth was hiding in the shadows, and they were racing toward it. But what would they find when they took the plunge? The darkness pressed around them, filled with danger yet promising answers. What secrets awaited in the shadows? The chase for the truth had only just begun. They sprinted through the alley, the deafening sounds of combat pushing them forward. Richard led the way, urgency fueling his movements as he glanced behind every few steps. The adrenaline pulsed through Mary, a mix of fear and determination gripping her heart. Stay close, Richard shouted, his voice strained. The stash is just a few blocks away. Alondra stumbled on a broken pavement edge, almost falling. Mary reached out, catching her arm. They couldn't afford to lose each other now. Not when all of this was reaching a boiling point. Do you know where we're going? Alondra gasped, breathless. Richard nodded, pulling them into yet another shadowy corner. I have a friend who can help us. He'll know what to do with the files. His eyes darted around before landing squarely on Mary. But we need to keep our heads down. If they find us, then what? Mary said, her voice trembling with urgency. We've already been targeted. What is going to happen if we don't get out alive? Then all this, Richard waved his hand toward the chaos behind them, was all for nothing. A chilling silence settled, cracking like ice, as the noise of the street became muffled. Richard crouched low, peering around the corner. They could see shadows moving in the distance, guards uncloaked by flashing lights. They're organizing, he said, a grim look on his face. They know we're here. Mary clenched her fists, the reality crashing into her like a wave. What if we leave? Go someplace safe? This is insane. It won't end if we run, Richard replied sharply. They're not just going to forget about us. In that tense moment, something shifted within Mary. Was it courage? A recognition of the stakes? She realized she couldn't turn back now. Not after everything she had seen and been through.
Right.
Let us find that stash. They crept forward, the air thick with apprehension. A sudden sound froze them, heavy footsteps approaching rapidly. Richard signaled for silence, pulling them into a narrow crevice between two buildings. Mary's heart thudded against her ribs, skin prickling with the fear of discovery. They watched as two guards approached, faces grim and focused. I heard they were seen heading this way, one guard said, glancing around. No way they can slip through. Check the alleys. Let us split up, the other responded. I'll take the west side. Mary's breath hitched as they walked closer. It was inevitable. If they didn't move soon, they'd get cornered.
Now,
Richard urged, and they darted out, sprinting once more. The lights bobbed erratically, illuminating debris and discarded belongings, a city in ruin, just like the threads of their lives. Suddenly, they reached a doorway, graffitied but intact. Richard led them inside, slamming the door shut behind them. The noise of chaos faded, replaced by a heavy silence. This is it, Richard panted. Should be here. He flicked on a flashlight, illuminating a disheveled space filled with old papers, boxes stacked high, and a desk caked in dust. As they rummaged through the mess, Mary felt the tension in the air thicken. What if the truth was worse than they imagined? What if this file revealed just how deep the corruption ran? Then, Alondra yelped, holding up a folder marked with bold red letters. Confidential. Is this it? Yes, Richard exclaimed, eyes wide with hope. Open it. Before they could delve deeper, the door rattled violently. Heavy footsteps echoed louder, and voices shouted outside. Get in there. They can't escape. Panic surged. They're coming, Mary whispered, her eyes wide with dismay. Think, Richard shouted. What do we do? With seconds slipping away, they had no choice. They had to uncover the truth. Or die trying. Let us get ready for a fight, Alondra said, determination blossoming in her voice. But as they braced themselves for what lay ahead, a chilling thought struck Mary. Could they really take on the forces that had already unleashed chaos upon their lives? And what if the truth they sought only led to more danger, tainted by betrayal? Before she could voice her fear, the door broke open, and their world shrank to the frantic battle for survival. What lay ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. They had crossed a line that led to annihilation. Would they emerge unscathed, or would the truth consume them? Heavy steel pushed against the frame of the door as it burst open, a cacophony of light flooding the cramped space. Shadows formed silhouettes of guards, their faces twisted in grim determination. Get them! One shouted, voice slicing through the air like a blade. Richard pushed Alondra and Mary deeper into the darkness of the room. Stay low. Move. Mary's heart raced, panic spiraling as she searched for something, anything to use. Her hands brushed against cold metal. A rusted pipe lay forgotten in the corner. She seized it, feeling its weight settle in her grip. On three, Richard whispered, each word heavy with urgency. 1, 2, the guards poured in, eyes scanning, methodical and intent. They're hiding. Check every inch.
Now,
Richard yelled, and in one explosive movement, they charged forward. With the pipe raised high, Mary swung it with all her strength. It caught one guard off guard, knocking him down to the floor with a satisfying thud. Adrenaline coursed through her veins, igniting every nerve as she prepared for another strike. Alondra joined in, grabbing a loose piece of wood from the floor and jabbing it toward the second guard. The impact landed squarely on his arm, causing him to stumble back, fear flashing in his eyes.
keep fighting,
Richard shouted, a fierce protector in the chaos. He grappled with a third guard, muscles straining as he tried to wrestle the weapon from the man's grasp. We need to hold them off. Mary gasped, breathless but resolute. She hadn't expected to become part of this madness today, let alone fight for her life. But the fire roaring in her chest spurred her on. Suddenly, a loud crash rang out from the front of the building. The door rattled violently as another wave of guards moved in. Fall back. A voice commanded from outside. We're outnumbered. The files. We can't let them get the files. Richard yelled, darting toward the desk. He ripped open the folder Alondra had found, eyes scanning the papers frantically.
This is it.
This is what they want. But the door creaked further open, and in stepped a tall figure, silhouetted against the harsh light. It was a woman, her stance radiating power. Mary squinted, trying to make out her face. Enough. The woman barked, her voice cutting through the noise like a knife. Recognition struck Richard, his expression shifting from determination to shock. Layla?
Get back,
She shouted, stepping forward. Without hesitation, she drew a weapon, aimed directly at Richard.
Wait.
Mary cried, adrenaline pumping through her with fierce intensity. What are you doing? Lower your weapon, Layla. We need to get out of here, Richard urged, desperation lacing his tone. But Layla smirked, eyes glinting with amusement. Do you really think you're the only one playing the game? This chaos? It's all part of a bigger plan. Mary's heart sank as reality crashed down. They were pawns in a game with stakes far beyond their understanding.
You sold us out.
Richard spat, disbelief painted on his face. You never understood, did you? Layla laughed coldly, cocking her head to the side. The truth doesn't matter when power is at stake. Neither does your little friendship. With an unexpected twist, she turned and fired a shot, the sound echoing as Mary dropped to the ground in shock. The guard next to Richard crumpled, and the fight erupted into chaos once more.
Go.
Richard screamed, urgency propelling them. You can't stay. Not now. As they turned to escape, the realization hung in the air, a truth wrapped in murky deception. Was Layla the real enemy? And what had they stumbled into? The answer lay ahead, but time was running out. Would they discover what they were truly fighting for, or would they fall victim to the forces unleashed around them? The blaring sirens outside crescendoed, red and blue lights flashing through the windows, casting a ghastly glow over the chaos inside. Richard yanked Mary and Alondra forward, their feet pounding against the uneven ground as they navigated the cluttered room. Where do we go? Alondra cried out, the sound laced with panic. Her eyes darted, searching for an exit or sanctuary. Out the back, Richard said, determination hardening his voice. We can't let them trap us here. They dashed toward the rear door, an old metal slab that seemed determined to stay shut. Richard pushed against it, his shoulders straining as he forced it open, revealing a narrow alleyway that led to freedom or at least a temporary reprieve. But just as they spilled into the alley, a flurry of footsteps echoed behind them. The guards had regrouped. Mary felt the air thicken with dread, a palpable weight that hung over them like a storm cloud. Keep moving, Richard shouted as they sprinted into the shadows. The cold night air bit at Mary's skin, but she barely noticed over the roar of blood pumping in her ears. Glancing back, she caught sight of a few guards appearing at the door, expressions contorted with fury. The realization sent her heart racing anew. They could easily be caught. We need a plan. They'll be right on our tails. Alondra gasped, her cheeks flushed and breathing shallow. No plan but to run.
Move.
Richard barked, leading them down the cramped alley, their footsteps muffled by the damp earth. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the main building. Startling, Mary glanced back just in time to see Layla, unmistakable as she charged through the doorway, chaos erupting around her. Guards were falling, but not all of them were hers. The room had splintered into factions, each fighting for control, and amidst it all, Layla seemed to glide with effortless grace, wielding power like a maestro conducting an orchestra of mayhem. This way. Richard pulled them around a corner, the sound of their pursuers growing closer. They didn't stop to consider where the new path might lead. Instinct alone guided them. Mary's hand gripped the rusted pipe, the metallic coolness grounding her in the bracing terror of the moment. Each breath felt heavier, filled with the knowledge of betrayal. It wasn't just physical danger they faced anymore. There were shadows lurking in every corner, deception around each turn. What's the deal with Layla? She questioned, desperate for clarity amidst the chaos. She used to be on our side. Richard's jaw tightened. I trusted her. She was a mole, deep cover or not. It doesn't matter now. We don't have time to figure out her loyalties. Mary stumbled to a halt, her heart sinking. But we can't just keep running blindly. We need to understand how deep this goes. Maybe we don't get that option. Richard replied, voice rising in urgency as more footsteps rang out. We need a place to regroup, somewhere safe. Before Mary could respond, a sharp turn brought them into an open area. Ahead, a nondescript van sat idling, its back doors gaping wide. In that moment, Mary could see silhouettes inside a lifeline or another trap. But she had no time to weigh consequences.
Get in,
Richard yelled, rushing towards the van, pulling Alondra along. The driver, a hulking man with an unreadable expression, was scanning the surroundings, ready to bolt at the first sign of trouble. Mary hesitated, anxiety curling around her gut. What lay ahead? Would the ride take them to safety or deeper into the heart of the danger? As she climbed inside, fear pangs morphed into a surge of adrenaline. With a deafening roar, the van took off, tires screeching against the asphalt. Where are we going? Alondra asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Somewhere they can't find us, Richard replied, but uncertainty lingered in his tone. AS buildings blurred past like ghostly images. Mary caught Richard's gaze, full of questions unanswered. What was the truth behind Layla's betrayal? And where did they go from here? In the distance, shadows danced like puppets, signaling that they were far from safe. The real battle was only beginning, and an unsettling realization gripped Mary. The game had changed. Mere survival may not be enough anymore. And as they sped into the unknown, one chilling thought echoed in her mind. Was anyone truly who they said they were? The van rattled and swayed as it sped through back alleys, the driver maneuvering with a raw intensity. Mary felt the tension in the air thickening, wrapping around her like a suffocating blanket. The chaos of the outside world faded, yet the uncertainty thudded violently in her chest. Where are we going? Alondra's voice trembled with equal parts fear and urgency. Richard's face remained unreadable, brows furrowed as he stared out the back window, searching for threats lurking in the shadows. The warehouse, he finally said, his voice steadying. We can regroup there. Regroup? Mary felt skepticism pulling her lips into a thin line. What's left to regroup? We can't just keep running. Her grip on the rusty pipe tightened, her knuckles turning white. They'll find us. They're everywhere. Exactly, Richard replied, turning to meet her gaze. And right now, we need each other more than ever. We want to get through this alone. Alondra nodded, her expression hardened with resolve. Yes, right. If this is a war, not just a robbery, we need to understand what we're up against. But just as Mary opened her mouth to speak, the van was jolted, a loud bang reverberating against the metal frame. A bullet? An explosion? The driver cursed beneath his breath as the tires screeched and the vehicle veered dangerously. Mary's heart raced. Every instinct screamed for her to brace for impact. We're hit, yelled the driver, his knuckles turning white on the steering wheel.
Hang on.
They swerved around a corner, the sound of gunfire ringing in the distance. Two black SUVs seemed to materialize from nowhere, closing in like wolves on a hunt. The driver floored the gas, but Mary could see the landscape outside, shifting. Danger was closing in. Get ready, Richard shouted, instinctively looking for cover. Alondra, get down. But there wasn't time. A second bullet struck, piercing the rear window, sending shards raining down like lethal snow.
Go. Go.
Richard yelled as he yanked the door open, adrenaline coursing like wildfire.
Out now.
As Mary scrambled out, she could feel the panic rising like bile in her throat. All semblance of safety shattered. They were in a desperate race against time. They darted into a nearby building, taking cover behind crates piled high like makeshift walls. Mary gasped for air, her lungs burning as she tried to make sense of the whirlwind surrounding them. Outside, shouts and footsteps echoed, pursuers closing in. Just like that, Richard said, chest heaving as they crouched low. We're back in the game. We're not ready for this. Mary shot back, searching Alondra's face for reassurance, but finding only shared fear. Alondra gritted her teeth, glancing at Richard.
What now?
Richard rifled through his pockets, pulling out a small walkie-talkie. We wait for backup. I called in a favor. They'll know we need help. A favor, Mary echoed, hardly believing it. The world was crumbling around them. What kind of help could he summon now? They listened intently as chaos erupted outside. Shouts rang out, punctuated by the sound of footsteps rushing past. They're after us, Alondra muttered, eyes darting nervously. What if we're trapped? We can't think like that. We need to stay focused. Richard's voice was firm, but Mary could sense the tension beneath. Just then, the radio crackled to life. Static buzzed harshly, followed by a voice she recognized. Richard, you there? We're closing in. Get ready. Renee, Richard exclaimed, a wave of relief washing over him. We're in the old storage building near the docks. On our way. Hold tight. A handful of seconds stretched, each one heavy with anticipation. Each heartbeat felt like a countdown, and Mary wrestled with her mounting fear. What if help didn't arrive? What if they were too late? Suddenly, a new sound pierced through the roar of an engine approaching rapidly. Richard pressed his finger to his lips, signaling for silence. Mary held her breath, heart pounding, listening to the chaotic rhythm of footsteps growing nearer. "I don't think they're cops," one voice shouted outside. "Check the entrance." Mary squeezed. Her eyes shut, desperation pooling within her. The stakes had never felt higher. The walls felt like they were closing in. They were vulnerable, exposed in the dark. Just as panic threatened to spiral out of control, the entrance burst open, and Richard sprang into action, shielding Alondra and Mary. A figure barreled through the door, gun raised, but instead of a guard, it was a familiar face.
"Get down!"
Renee shouted, barely inside before she began firing at the approaching threats outside, her movements calculated and fierce. Mary's pulse quickened, relief collided with fear as the whirlwind of chaos tumbled into action. She was on a precipice, balance teetering between fighting for survival and surrendering to panic. "Let us take a stand," Richard called out, adrenaline coursing wildly through the air. "Alondra, you help Renee cover me. Mary, stay close by." As bullets revived chaos, Mary felt resolve blossom within, spurred by the urgency to protect her own life and those she cared about. They weren't just surviving now, they were fighting back. Time etched itself into each moment, raw and charged, each heartbeat pulsating through them like electricity. Together, they redefined their fate in the face of overwhelming odds. With heavy breaths and steel resolve, Mary clutched the pipe like a shield. No turning back now. They were drawing courage from each other, forming a pact against the chaos. And in that moment, amidst the storm surrounding them, the fight had only just begun. Would they rise, unite against the storm, or would they be engulfed by the tidal wave of danger crashing down upon them? The adrenaline rushed, and Mary felt a flicker of hope burning. This was their moment. "Let us go," she shouted, determination thundering in her voice, as they charged into the fray, hearts synchronized in the clamor. Together, they would face whatever lay ahead. This was just the beginning of their true battle. The sheets of destiny had begun to turn, and with every action, they were rewriting their fate. Now, the crescendo had reached a tipping point. The storm was only just rising, and with courage galvanizing their spirits, they plunged into the turmoil, ready to uncover the truth, reclaim their power, and change the game forever. And as they stepped forward into the unknown, one undeniable truth set ablaze in their hearts. Together, they were unstoppable. You need to subscribe now to ensure you don't miss the intense journey ahead. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support for our next episode. And flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about how this battle unfolds. This is the moment to share this video with at least 5 friends who absolutely need to see this dramatic conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to join us for more exclusive stories.